All right, welcome back to the podcast. I have a guest with me today. I have Hayleigh from Espresso Podcast Production. Hayleigh, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Hayleigh Hayhurst. I'm the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, like you just said. So, I help businesses and brands start their podcasts and then also help them with the ongoing marketing and management as well. So, everything dealing with podcasting, I can help with from, getting your first episode up to making sure that you're consistent to then scaling to the next level and actually making sales from your podcast are all
Mhm.
things I help my clients with. And so I've been doing this full time for 4 years. I am based in Seattle, Washington. I love all things PNW, but I'm originally a Vegas girl where I was loving the desert. And so it's been quite a transition. But yeah, other than that, I have a dog. I'm a dog mom. His name is Captain. He's a Basset Hound Pit Bull mix, the funniest looking dog you'll ever see. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Nice. Awesome. I find it so funny because you sound like so professional in your introduction, probably because this is your job.
Yes.
So you got that down pat. So how did you originally get into or initially get into like doing the podcast stuff and doing this for people?
Yeah. So I started podcasting back in 2017, 2018 when I was in school. So I went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I was studying journalism. And during that, my friend and I were like, hey, maybe we should start a podcast. We had similar interests and we had access to a podcasting studio. And we didn't have a lot of classes together and we didn't really see each other much outside of classes. And so we were like, yeah, it'll be a great time to catch up. We actually worked together. So I was working for the city and like the most boring intern job you could ever have. And a lot of that time, I was also listening to podcasts because, a long story, but I was basically like a front desk person, but the door was locked and no
Mm,
one ever came in. I don't know
good.
what I was doing. And so I had a lot of time just to listen to podcasts. And I was like, if this is what corporate is like, I never want to be in this. So I was
Yeah.
listening to a lot of shows about entrepreneurship, about freelance writing, because I was in journalism and all these things.
Mhm.
And so podcasting was always in my head, and I was learning so much from different podcasters. Being Boss was one of my favorite podcasts at the time. I think she recently stopped her show, but that was like one of the biggest things that helped me in my business now. But so back to the story of we were just, we were like, let's start a podcast. We have access to this. So
Mhm.
every single week we met up, we recorded, and then we were editing and marketing the show all by ourselves. Never did I ever think that would take me anywhere. I thought that that was just for fun and
Yeah.
I was going to go and work in like a newspaper or a TV or some sort of, I don't know what I was going to do. I was in
Something.
college.
Yeah.
And so I graduated right into the pandemic. I graduated in December of 2020, and then we all know what happened, or 2019. And so we
Mhm.
all know what happened March 2020. And I had been laid off of a different internship that I had, and I wasn't hired anywhere. I mean, nowhere was really hiring.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, a friend, my cousin's cousin, reached out to me and she was like, hey, I have a podcast in the business space. I know that you used to have a podcast. I know that you know how to run podcasts. Can I hire you to edit? And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm making $0 right now, so I would love to help you. And so I was helping her with her podcast for about 4 months. And then you know, she introduced me to all these other business people. And so at that 4 month mark, she was giving me referrals. I worked with
Mhm.
her for probably 2 years, and it was just like, it was great because it was such amazing to have a person who was willing to hire me for a skill that I already had and
Yeah.
then connect me with other people. And so since then, I have just adapted and grown in the podcasting space. I've started my own podcast, Employee to Boss, and really mentor other podcasters now, along with my done for you services.
Mhm. That is, it's so interesting because so often that's kind of not the story. Like
Mhm.
people don't have the story of I was actually like doing this and then it became something that I actually did for a living. It's more like I saw this cool thing online that I thought I would just make into a business. It's not actually like this worked out for me and, became this business because I knew all of this about it. And it was a thing that I was really good at. And I just like, I love that.
Yeah.
I love how that like came together. And it's just like, that's so cool that, it just developed in that way. So when you started working with her, how long did it take you to kind of build up your business? Like, did you have any kind of social media presence or anything like that at that time? Or like, what did you do kind of besides the referrals?
Yeah, no, I had zero social media presence. And if you scroll back on my social media of what I was posting 4 years ago, like you can see I have no idea what I was doing because
Mm-hmm.
I never intended to actually start a podcast production agency. Like that was never in my plan for my life. And so I'm so happy it happened. But once she started giving me referrals, and I was like, okay, I like this. I actually started doing half podcast production, half virtual assistant. And for a while there, I was leaning into getting a lot more virtual assistant clients because
Mm-hmm.
people needed help with their businesses online. And
Yeah.
I was doing that for about a year and a half. And I was like, okay, I hate virtual assistant. Really, this is not for me. It
Yeah.
was just so redundant.
Yeah.
And with podcasting, I love it because I have clients in all different industries now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm never editing episodes that sound alike or about the same topic. And that keeps it so interesting for me. So when I actually decided, okay, I have like a business potential here, let me take the next step. What I did was I hired a mindset coach. And this was the first investment I had ever made in my business, which I don't like, she just reached out to me at the right time. She said the right things. And
Mm-hmm.
she helped me so much in the beginning phases of starting Espresso Podcast Production because, first of all, she helped me with my pricing. I had no idea. I think
Yeah.
the most I'd ever made before this was like 8.25 an hour, which was minimum wage in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she helped me actually come up with my offers. She helped me how to think of myself as a business owner. All these mindset things that I don't think I'd have my business the way it is without doing that as the first step.
Mm-hmm.
So she was helping me actually reach out to new people. It's really easy to stay safe and like the referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Referrals are great. Referrals are some of my favorite clients I've ever gotten. But to get more clients, of course, you have to put yourself out there. So
Yeah.
she made me post like my first 9 posts. So I had an actual, like, if someone's looking at my Instagram, my whole page would be full. Like, just things like that. That was the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. It was all a bunch of messy action and just kind of pushing myself to do it in the beginning. And yeah, I mean, if I had hired a business coach, it would have been different. I probably would have had a strategy behind what I was posting. But what I needed then was actually like the mindset help.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, because it's so much different than what people usually do. They usually
Mhm.
go for the business coach
Yeah.
instead of the mindset coach. I'm surprised. I was actually surprised when you said that because I wouldn't have guessed that. Most people go for the business coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, she did help me a lot with business, but I
Hmm.
I I didn't really know anything about coaches back then, to be completely
Yeah.
honest. And so when she reached out to me and I think she gave me like a free 30-minute call, I
Hmm.
was like, okay, this is what I need. And it was what I needed. 100% it was what I needed. And now, like 4 years into business, I've hired multiple coaches. She was the only mindset coach I hired. I hired business coaches since then. But really, I think mindset coaching is one of the best ways to start.
Interesting. That's such an interesting perspective because I've never heard that before because so many people go to business coaches. I
Yeah.
am, however, the same. I have like the same experience kind of coming into this as you, I didn't know that business coaches existed. I knew nothing about any of that. It was all like a new thing to me when I came
Yeah.
online. So it was very, that part of this has been very interesting. But I want to hear, so with your clients now, you talked about like you edit podcasts and stuff. What
Mhm.
are all the other things that you do? Like what all do you do with people and their podcasts?
Yeah. So the ways that I love helping people is obviously starting their podcast. So there's a lot of trends that go around with podcasting,
Hmm.
and right now, video podcasts are like the way to go, right? If you're
Yeah.
going to start a podcast, you probably are going to start a video podcast. So, in that, it's a podcast launch service that I have where I can help you start your podcast in 4 weeks.
Hmm.
Basically, all my clients have to do is actually press record and send me the content, and then I do all of the posting behind the scenes type of editing, scheduling, making it all, a way that it's going to be a successful podcast with
Hmm.
writing show notes, descriptions, blah, 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 all the things, right? There's a lot that goes into starting a podcast. So they
Yeah.
hire me just because there is so much. Usually they're busy business owners and they just need some help with kind of like the technical side. And then ongoing, I help them with weekly management. So
Hmm.
when you start a podcast, there, like I said, there's a lot that goes into it. So if you are not the most consistent person, having a podcast manager like me will help you definitely stay consistent and come up with a plan.
Yeah.
But with all of this, my favorite way that I've been helping a lot of clients over the past like year and a half has been strategy, because people are starting to realize like, oh, I cannot just post and millions of people will come my way.
Yeah.
I should actually have a strategy behind my podcast. So I help people with this through like my strategy sessions, which are VIP days, or I have a podcast accelerator program, which just signed a client. So exciting. I love signing clients in this service because this is where I really help you show up more online, become omnipresent, which is like the word of the year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Omnipresent. And there's a reason why people want to become omnipresent.
Yeah.
It's because so many people are on different platforms. You can reach different people in different places. One of my clients, she's like, I want people to be like, how am I everywhere? How do I
Hmm.
keep seeing this person everywhere?
Yeah.
Because in business, there's so much competitiveness, there's so
Yeah.
much, you're not alone in your niche
No.
ever. And
No,
so
that would be a very rare thing if you found a niche where there was no one else.
yeah, and if you find one, start something in that
Yeah,
because
exactly. Be the
it
first.
won't, right, it
Yeah.
won't be like that for long. And so those are really the ways that I help my clients. So everything from editing to strategy, I love it all.
Interesting. And I know, so right before this, we were talking about the difference between, you kind of were saying the difference between when you're starting a podcast, people being like over prepared versus under prepared.
Mhm.
I want you to talk about that because I want to hear your take on it. I know what I did when I started this, um, and I'll tell you what I did after.
Okay.
You can talk
Yeah,
about this and then I'll tell you what I did.
perfect. Yeah. So really, I see this happen a lot. I feel like a lot of people come to me and they're like, I've been thinking about this for the past 3 years. I finally want to start. And okay, before I get into this, I do want to say there is a time that everyone should start their podcast. I'm not going to be someone that's like, start now, even if you're not ready. Start when you're ready, of course.
Hmm.
But readiness is like there's a time frame for readiness. So if you've been thinking about it for 3 years and maybe have, bought your microphone, come up with the plan, have the podcast name, okay, then that's the time to start. The time to start is not when you have everything and you've overthought it for another year and a half,
Yeah.
right? But also, I see a lot of people, business coaches or even other podcast producers say, start tomorrow. You can totally just press record and post it, and that's easy. Podcasting is so easy.
Hmm.
And yeah, podcasting can be easy, but if you don't have that plan in place, you're really going to be disappointed. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a lot of people think, like I said before, once you post, people are going to come to you.
Yeah.
It's hard work. There's a lot of podcasts
Yeah.
out there that get like 2 views an episode. That's because they're
Hmm.
not marketing. They're just thinking people are going to come to them. The podcasts that are successful are ones that are showing up on social media, are talking about their podcasts in different places. Maybe they
Hmm.
already have a brand in place, and this is just here to help them grow. So, really, where you are in business is important to think about when you are starting a podcast. But yes, there's a time and a place, and you know, it's definitely like when I started my podcast, Employee to Boss, I hate to admit this, I was in the group of people who overthought it, which is so embarrassing because I help people start their podcast every single day.
Yep.
When it was, for me, when it was for me, I was like, okay, let me see. I have to manage all of my client work. I need to do all of
Hmm.
this. I think I recorded like 20 episodes before I actually posted one, which is
Really?
insane. Yes, I know. I know. But
Uh,
it's like it happens, you know?
yeah.
But I went through it, and so now I can help other people not go through that because you should have a backlog of recorded episodes, but maybe 20 is a little excessive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know, like, I definitely was considering it for a while. And, I ended up, I was like, yep, bought my mic. I decided I was going to release it on my 40th birthday. Like, this was something that I wanted to do. Had my business and I guess my brand for like 3.5 years. And it was just, I really wanted to do this as an extra way to like, get my message out. I also, it's kind of funny. I don't know. I talk way too long on stories and stuff. So I was like, well, may as well have a podcast so I can talk as long as I want and then I
Like
don't
when it
have to
cuts
worry
you
about
off
that.
and you're like in the middle of a sentence, I hate that. I do the same thing.
I know, right? Now I can just go on forever and, you know, I don't actually, but I thought this would be a good way to have actually longer form content. So I had like sort of a plan, but I didn't have a huge plan. Like I kind of knew what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And, things were a bit thought out, but it wasn't like it wasn't over planned. I definitely had episodes recorded. Um, I don't know, but for sure, there is no way I don't think that you can just like hit record and start tomorrow because there was
Yeah.
still things that I was like, holy shit, I didn't know. Like
Yeah.
getting your RSS feed out to all these different places, and I didn't realize that they didn't update until the next day. And so the night before, I was like, well, this sucks because some of these like platforms aren't going to get my episodes on the day that I wanted it to. And so
Yep.
it's like things like that. But, you really have to take those things into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's one of the things that in my podcast launching, I talk to my clients about because if you have a certain date that you want to launch on,
Hmm.
the way I work is we're going to post your trailer episode 2 weeks before that because
Yeah.
Apple Podcasts can literally take 2 weeks for your
Hmm.
podcast to show up. Most of my clients, it'll show up like the day after that.
Yeah.
But I did have one client that it took the full 2 weeks. And so that's what I tell them. I'm like,
Yeah.
post your trailer episode 2 weeks before because then the beauty of that is you can also start getting reviews
Yeah.
and sending it to friends and family and promoting it. And that's like the most fun part where you get to just be like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm a podcaster now.
Exactly. Exactly. Because that's like kind of sucks when you're, launch day and you go to post and you're like, oh, shit, not
Yeah,
actually launch day because this
right.
isn't going to update. And especially for Apple, like that's the huge one. That's the
Yeah.
main one where everyone gets there. So if it's not going to be there, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I was going to ask you something just as you were talking about that and then I lost it. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you about. Okay, so when people launch their podcasts, what do you what do you suggest in terms of actually launching? Like, what's the best way to go about launching and
Mhm.
promoting it initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I said, you're going to want to post that trailer 2 weeks before. And what I always think is really fun is, like you launched yours on your 40th birthday, having some sort of like giveaway is always a
Hmm.
great way to build some excitement around it, get reviews. And so you could, if you're a coach, you could maybe offer like a free coaching call, or maybe if you could offer like a pair of AirPods or something like that that will be helpful for business owners, something that will keep you like it will make them want to leave you a review and like be
Hmm.
excited. And so, okay, so launching, that's what I recommend 2 weeks before with some promotion. And when it comes to like what to actually post, like I said, video is definitely the way to go because you
Yeah.
can then cut your long form video up into clips. And so this is my favorite way to grow podcasts now. I'm sure if you're on TikTok or if you're on Instagram and you're scrolling, you see clips from podcasts almost every other reel. At least I do. I see so many. Some are comedy podcasts, some are business podcasts, some are health podcasts, but they all kind of have the same vibe to them. It's just some hook to make you want to go listen to the episode.
Hmm.
And I'm posting a post tomorrow actually where it's like all clips are not created equal because a lot of people do use AI to make their clips. AI is great. AI can definitely help you cut your podcast up into clips, but I don't use that for my clients because
Nope.
they are weird. Some of them are just do not make sense. I mean,
I
if
tried
you've
it
ever
once, never again. It
right,
was awful.
it's like the AI does not know what's
No,
actually going to perform well, and it'll cut word. I could get all into that in a whole nother episode about
it was
my
weird.
exactly. And so cutting up clips and then putting them on social media is the best way to do it. And so this does take a little bit of time to plan out what clips are going to work, how long
Yeah.
the clip should be, but it is time well spent because if
Yeah.
you're a business owner and you are putting out consistent content, a podcast can save you so much time because with
Yeah.
your 1 hour video or however long it is, for my clients, I can get 10, 15 clips from that podcast. And so then I
Hmm.
could post those 10 clips on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and Facebook. Now
Yeah.
those 10 clips have turned into 40. And that is omnipresence for your business. That's showing
Exactly.
everywhere. 40 times each episode. Okay. So if you're putting out 4 episodes a month, what is that? 160 touch points for people to listen to you.
Yeah.
And that is powerful. That's really the power of podcasting that a lot of people do not tap into. And I
Hmm.
think they will soon. I think that right now, the biggest podcasts are really monopolizing on this, but the more people that see how well these clips are performed, they can go viral.
Yeah.
They can get you so many followers. They can get you so many listeners and clients. And that is where I really see the next step of podcasting going.
Hmm.
A couple years ago, I would say maybe 2.5 years ago, maybe three, someone came to me and she was like, "Oh, my favorite podcast is called blah, blah, blah. I've never actually listened to an episode, but I saw a clip. Like, I like the clips that they post." Now, this was 3 years ago. I thought that this woman was crazy. I was like, "How have you never listened to the podcast?" But now
Yeah.
that's so normal. Now it's
Yeah.
so normal. You can nurture people. They'll feel nurtured by you just
Hmm.
by these clips because they're either funny, entertaining, or they're educating you.
Yeah.
And that is enough to build trust for
Yeah.
people to buy from you then.
Yeah. It's something actually that I need to do more of. I always do one from each episode, but I need to do a lot more. And I know that I do, but it's so true. Like that is the easiest way to get a whole ton of content.
Yeah.
And people are always complaining about how hard it is to make content. This makes it so much easier, like
Yeah.
a million times easier. And yes, you have to go in and you have to cut up, your video and stuff. I always do mine at the same time. I don't know how you do yours, but I I edit mine myself. I enjoy doing it. It's probably
Yeah.
because I just enjoy a lot of tech stuff, but I do it in CapCut. It's super easy. I just like whatever, edit it all at the same time, cut out my reel, and it doesn't actually take that much time.
Yeah. It
Like it
doesn't.
adds the captions in there, it does all of the things. Like it's not that big of a deal. And if you can do that and really cut down on that time and get that many content pieces, that's so huge.
Yes, it really is. Entrepreneurs use podcasts for the content,
Hmm.
hands down. That's the number one reason so many business coaches, so many entrepreneurs, so many, service providers are starting podcasts is
Yeah,
for the content.
yeah, absolutely. I know, and I need to take more out of mine. Just reminds me to do it. But anyways, I will do that. So in terms of other than posting the content from each episode, do you have any other suggestions of like promoting it? Like what have you found is like some of the best ways that your clients have been able to grow their podcasts or grow their
Yeah.
podcast or anything like that?
Yeah, so the way I see podcasting is as a marketing tool. So I'm going to answer your question, but a little bit loosely because tying into business, like that's usually the main outcome of what my clients want. They come to me and they're like, hey, I have this podcast. I want leads. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, we need to set up lead funnels. We need to set up lead magnets.
Yeah.
So if you think of like a lead funnel, like a triangle. Let's just think of it like that. And a podcast is at the bottom. People will come to your podcast, listen, and then eventually go to your Instagram. And then they'll eventually like tap into maybe like a free offer you have. And then they
Hmm.
might hire you one-on-one. Or if you think at the bottom of the triangle, they're currently following you on Instagram, but they're like a stale lead. They're just kind of like their eyes are just on you.
Yeah.
Then you start a podcast. They'll go and listen to the podcast. They'll get into a freebie. They can work with you one-on-one. And so it's really just that's the main way that my clients are growing their businesses through podcasting. So just posting more is number one, but also setting up if someone comes and listens to your podcast, what's the next step? People
Hmm.
will do what you want them to do, especially if they're spending an hour a week with you.
Yeah.
They're you're on the go with them. You might be on the runs with them or in their car, or like whatever it is. You're in their ear and they're getting to know you. They're going to want to know more about you.
Yeah.
So, two easy tips for entrepreneurs of how you can like put this funnel into action is one, we're so quick to want advertisers on our podcast and be like, I'll run commercials for that company and that company.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably a company and you can run
Yeah.
your own commercials. Put your
Yeah.
own commercials in there because
Exactly.
that is you are a business.
Yeah.
So talk about a service you provide. Talk about a freebie you want. Right now, I have a masterclass that I'm promoting. That's at the beginning of all of my episodes because that is kind of where I want them to go next.
Hmm.
So number one, put your own commercials in. Number two is, if you're inviting people onto your podcast, like my podcast is all interviews for the most part.
Hmm.
Really asking like strategic people onto your podcast where both people will have some sort of connection to each other and can kind of like help each other grow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So making everything make sense and guesting, I know some people are very like resistant to having people on their podcast. Some people love
Yeah.
it. I currently love it, or I've like always loved it, but I think it's the fastest way to actually grow your podcast and your business
Hmm.
because they will then be promoting their episode. And
Yeah.
so they'll come and listen, they'll come and stay, and then, it all starts from there.
Yes. I Both of those things I absolutely love. Obviously, with like the systems and automation. So, like the lead magnet thing,
Mhm.
that's like huge what I'm all about. And I absolutely agree. It's got to be like looked at as part of, your funnel like that. And that's exactly what it is like, how do you get people closer to you?
Yeah.
I just like, I love that so much. I was talking about this today, and like, it also is part of, I think, giving more free value and just like how much can you actually provide? Like, how much can you give? Give more freaking free value and actually teach people things. Because when you do this and you have things like a podcast where you are teaching things, you're giving real tips, you're having people on that are sharing actual things that they can use for their business. That is when people are going to want to listen more. They're going to want to check you out more, and they're going to want to become clients. Like, it's just that's the way that it's going to work. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Just that whole building trust.
yeah,
Because if you're always asking for stuff from your audience, if you're always asking for them to become your clients, if you're asking for their input, if you're asking for referrals and you're not
mhm,
giving anything, they're going to get tired of you asking.
yeah,
So with having a podcast, just like you said, you're giving free value. You're
yeah,
giving free content. You're giving a place for them to come and learn for free. People are always afraid of giving everything away for free, and I never have been because
no,
they can go listen to someone else who's giving it all away for free too. I mean,
yeah,
just because you're giving it all away for free is not going to mean that they're not going to work with you.
hmm,
Right? They're probably going to be like for you, systems. Okay, systems are not easy. You could tell me step by step exactly how to set something up, and I'll be like, Tara, what are you talking about? Please, please just do
yeah,
this for me.
yeah,
And so that's what I always think. Do not be afraid of giving things away for free. It
hmm,
only helps. It literally only helps.
yeah. Like, it's so, so huge. And I think there was this whole thing for especially a while. I don't know if it's still a thing where it was like, don't give away everything for free. Your boundaries. What about your paying clients? And it's like, no, like you actually, there's also this level of you need to actually build up the trust for people to pay you. And especially if you're expecting people to pay you a lot of money, like let them know why they should.
Yes,
For the love of
exactly.
God, please.
Exactly. Yeah, give a little insight to what you do. Probably people don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like, yeah, absolutely think that that's so, so useful.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up because that's so important. I hired a business coach, and not all business coaches are also created equal. Like I said, not all clips are created. Okay, it maybe wasn't the best investment I've ever made in my
Yep.
life,
Yep.
but I did learn a couple things from her. And one of the things was offering webinars because, master classes, those are great ways to teach people. And the other one is offering free 30-minute calls.
Hmm.
And before that, I had always been under the impression of 30-minute calls are only for people who want to work with me. 30-minute calls are only consult calls to
Yeah.
sell to them. And she was like, no, no, no.
No.
30-minute calls can be you advising people. 30-minute calls can be you helping someone, with their podcast. And so what we did was we came up with like this three-step call that I would offer to podcasters to talk about, how is their content, how's their promotion, and then how is the overall like sales and how like what is going on with your podcast? Are you
Yeah.
marketing it well? And this was one of the first things that I like actually start because remember, I was doing VA work plus like virtual assistant work plus podcasting. I wanted to be done with virtual assistant. And this was the easiest way for me to talk to podcasters and literally have them tell me what their biggest pain points are. So I'd
Hmm.
get on these calls, and I kid you not, I probably did over 100 free 30-minute calls with podcasters in
Yep.
all different industries. So I work with businesses and business podcasts, but I would take calls with people in like sports, comedy, politics, like literally them reviewing movies, like all these different things.
Yeah.
And I would ask them, okay, what's your biggest problem in your podcast right now? They would tell me. I would say, okay, well, let's look at your social media. How are you promoting your podcast? I would see issues there. I'd be like, okay, well, here's an idea. If you didn't do this and you did this instead, see what happens. They would come back to me and be like, okay, that was so helpful. Thank you so much. And so I could
Hmm.
use those as testimonials, but also
Yeah.
that time that I spent for free, I learned so much because now
Yeah.
I offer a premium for my calls because I know what I'm talking about, because
Yeah.
I did all these free calls, because I had all this experience talking with podcasters in all different industries. And that was one of the most mind-blowing things that I learned in business that I really
Hmm.
recommend people to do because, like I said, referrals were how I grew my business. This is how I took it to the next level because I'd post in Facebook groups and have people comment and be like, I want a free call, I want a free audit. That's
Yeah.
what I call them, audits. And I would say yes to everyone and be like, hey, here's my calendar, pick a time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I met tons and tons of people that way.
Yeah, I love that. I actually do that as well. I do free 30-minute strategy and automation sessions.
Mm,
And I do them usually the first week of every month. I'll open up my calendar for people and anyone can book in. And it's literally like we work on your business. We figure out like what's going on. If there's any automation gaps, what's going on with strategy in your business, like what can we actually improve here to get things
yeah,
moving?
yeah.
And I love doing them. I absolutely love doing them. And it's true, you learn a lot. I love that I can actually help people with their business. A lot of the times they do convert because I'm truly helping them. It's not something where it's like, get on this call, but really I'm going to pitch you. Like it's not that. It's like we're getting to work here. We're going to figure out what's going on and what I can help you with.
Mhm.
And I think that it's so valuable for both like you being the person doing it and the person that's signing up for it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It literally is the thing that, now my calls that I offer, the strategy sessions, are 3 hours long and I have a whole structure
Hmm.
with them. So it's much, much deeper dive. And there's a lot of research that I do going into it to
Yeah.
actually ensure that my client sees growth from that part. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, messy starts in the beginning with like 30-minute what's your problem type of calls to now
Yeah.
being able to really like solve the problems going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's so huge and just being able to actually like do some of those things and find out what is actually going to work.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So as we wrap up, I guess, what would be like your top tips, your top three tips for podcasting if you have three, or what are your like top things?
Yeah. Okay. I love this. So I will take the stance from like if you're just starting a podcast where, you haven't really recorded, but it's in your mind that you want to be a podcaster. So if it's in your mind, there's a reason for that. And I'm sure like if you have the desire, you should definitely take action on it. So the first thing I would do is order a microphone. This is the
Hmm.
easiest way to feel professional. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you could start without a microphone. Audio quality is so important.
Yeah.
Okay, number one
Yeah.
reason people will turn off a podcast is audio quality. If there's a million podcasts out there, I do have to say that. There's a ton of, well, maybe not a million, but there's a lot of podcasts out there. And the like if your audio is not good, they'll go and listen to someone whose is. And
Yeah.
the audio quality is number one, so make sure you have a microphone. The second step that I would take is actually do some research in the topic that you want to be in. So, as you're planning your own podcast, look at other podcasts in that niche. See what maybe the top 10 are. Don't copy them. Of course, be your own person and your own idea, but it is good to see what else is out there, how
Hmm.
long their episodes are, maybe what they're titling their episodes, things like that. It's always good to do that market research, but do not get hung up on this part. Keep moving. The third thing I would say is I have a free podcast checklist for anyone who wants to launch, and it has resources. I've been in business for a long time, so I have a ton of resources that I've since created or created in the past. And this is a great place to start because it literally breaks down every step you need to take to starting your podcast. Everything from like microphone recommendations to actually setting up your RSS feed is on this checklist. So if you would like that, if you just go to my website, espressopodcastproduction.com/checklist, you can go and download that there.
Amazing. That is like so, so helpful. I think that that checklist would be like if you are looking to start a podcast, like you need to go pick that up because that's like you need that. Okay, the thing I do remember what I was going to ask you, episode length. Is there
Yeah.
like, what are your thoughts on that? Is there something just quick here? Is there an ideal episode length? Like, what do you think about that? Because there's podcasts that are all over the place.
Mhm.
Is there like a general thing that you would stick with, or does it really depend?
So I will say it does depend because
Mhm.
thinking about your ideal audience and then creating content for them is important. So, for busy moms who are having podcasts for other busy moms, maybe keep your episodes like 15, 20 minutes where they can listen to it on the drive, from and to like school pickup or something like that. Or if you're creating a podcast like, what is it, the Huberman podcast, I think it's called,
Oh,
where
yeah, yeah,
his are like 3 hours long, and that's because he deep dives into the topics,
yeah.
like literally deep dive. Nothing is unturned in his episodes. It's a lot of research that goes into that. I will say don't make your episodes 3 hours if they don't need to be. So
Yeah.
I would say between like 20 minutes and an hour is the sweet spot. But I go into this in my master class. I don't want to keep promoting my services, but
No, go
I have a
ahead. I think
free,
that it would be amazing. So it's fine.
yeah, I have a free master class. If you go to my website, espressopodcastproduction.com/masterclass, you can watch it there. And I actually go really deep into this of like the structure of your episodes and then also statistics on how long podcast episodes are. So the majority of them are between 30 and 45 minutes. And I think that's because you can really get into the topic. If you have a guest, you can really like get to know them and you can really educate your audience a little bit more than you can in a quick 20-minute episode. And so, of
Mhm.
course, think of everything from the lens of your ideal listener, create content based on that, but always keep it entertaining, keep it nice and easy
Yeah.
to understand. So, it really depends on your niche, but it could be anywhere.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And I will link your masterclass in the show notes so that everyone can get that. If you want to drop the link for your freebie as well for the checklist, you can give me that. I will link that too. We
Perfect.
will give everything and then everyone will have it. So, yes, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like this was like such a good, valuable episode with like so many good tips.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. I love talking. Obviously, that's my business. So I'm really happy that I got to join you today. And yeah, I hope I can help some people feel empowered enough to start a podcast. Podcasting is so fun. I mean, I really, really love it. And I hope that people really take a lot of value from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And if you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.